Greetings, folks, and welcome to today's show. The term entrepreneurs is a great buzzword these days, and it's, of course, intimately connected with economic development, period, and two very closely related. And so we want to talk a little bit about one of our local gentlemen who are very much involved in that whole scene, and that's Cameron Newton, who you will remember is the head of the, as part of a Markham group, is head of the program that was called Nest 10 that we talked about a couple of years ago, and we'll catch up on that and see what else is new. So welcome, Cam, and you don't go by Cam, it's Cameron, isn't it?
Well, it depends. You know, some people call me Cam, some people call me Cameron, and there's no rhyme or reason behind it, so both are appropriate. But
I see.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
You answer to both of them?
That's right, yeah, you got it.
Okay. Well, let's take a short commercial break, folks, and we'll come back and get into things.
You made the time and the sacrifice to broaden their horizons, to see their smiles, but mostly to make lifelong memories. We think it's time to do it again, just the two of you. Don't let illness or injury slow you down. The rehab team at Life Care Center of Tullahoma is ready to help you live well.
Let the Smokehouse be your mountain getaway destination in beautiful Monteagle, Tennessee. Enjoy our cabins, restaurant, and old general store. Shop thesmokehouse.com, featuring homemade barbecue sauces, jellies, and many other fine Tennessee products. Our live Music on the Mountain series features some of the best local and Nashville talent every Friday and Saturday night, 6:30 p.m. No cover, kids welcome.
Back, folks, and we're talking today with Cameron Newton, who is our local entrepreneur magnifique, and we want to see what happened to the project he was in the last time we talked, almost, well, I give us about a year and a half ago. So at that time, Cameron, Nest 10 was rolling along. Tell us where you are at this point, what's happened, and
Sure, be happy to, Tom. I mean, you know, Nest 10 was part of a $200 million tax credit program the state of Tennessee put together, and then allocated those $200 million amongst 10 investment firms, $20 million apiece. We were one of the 10 firms the state selected, so we got the good housekeeping seal of approval, if you will. And that occurred, 3.5 years ago. And so over the last 3.5 years, we've been busy allocating that capital, investing into small startup businesses in Tennessee, and everything has been going pretty much as planned. In addition to the monies we received from the state of Tennessee, we also raised a sidecar fund of about $5 million, and then currently raising another $20 million fund.
Private funds.
Private funds, that's correct. The state money which you're referring to on Nest 10 had to be invested in state-based companies, or companies that we moved from out of state, but they had to have 60% of their employee base in the state of Tennessee. We fully invested all of that money now. We have several companies in there that are growing extremely fast. We're supplying additional capital to those companies. We're sitting on the boards of those companies. We're mentoring those companies, and we're assisting them in raising capital not only from the state of Tennessee, but from outside the state of Tennessee. So really the program that the state put together, that $200 million, if you look at our firm in general, we've invested about $15 million of that money, and we've brought in additional capital in excess of $100 million. So the multiplier on the state's capital has been, 6 or 7 times. So it's been a good event.
That sounds great. And so you're having considerable success with all of those startups, or
That's right. I mean,
have you lost one or two maybe?
Oh, sure. I mean, in this business, about a third of your companies are going to do really well, a third are going to do average, and a third you're either going to idle or they're going to become zombie companies, or you just shut them down.
Yeah.
And from the state's perspective, there was an economic development play, but there was also a jobs play. And so what you're seeing, if you look at the life cycle of a startup or a fund, a 10-year fund, which is basically what we are, you put all your money out the first 4 years, you mentor, you raise the companies the next 3 years, and then you start exiting in years 7 through 10. And really, we're just starting the phase where companies now are starting to hire. So that part of the program that the state was really highly counting on is just now starting to happen. So the next 4 years will really determine whether or not, from a jobs perspective, that the 10 Invesco program has really been successful. I think from a economic perspective, from a return perspective, I think the state's going to do quite well.
Okay. All right. That sounds like, well, you say you're just getting to the point where the hiring is beginning.
Right. Well, I mean, so you've reached a point to where companies that are going to be successful have started to grow, and you're seeing year-over-year growth, month-over-month growth. They're acquiring growth capital, and with that growth capital, they're hiring people. In the very beginning, we gave companies seed money just to get started. You know, form your company, figure out your attorneys, figure out your business plan. We help them with all of that, and then we develop your product, you know, so it's software development or product development, proof of concept, does your, you know, shiny toy work, and then you help them with proof of relevance, will somebody actually buy it, customer validation. And so now we're reaching the point where we've reached customer validation, we're selling products into the market, and we're putting kerosene on the fire in some instances to help it grow. And so when that instance happens, you start to see jobs being added, and I think that's what you'll see over the next 3 to 4 years. And
okay. You originally had 3 areas of interest that you were, that according to the state, you and the state plan that was agreed on, that you were going to concentrate on. And we need to remind everybody that you were prepared to deal all over the state. You weren't, this wasn't a regional program. Well, out of the 3 areas of interest you had, how are those going? Give us a little update.
Sure.
By area of interest.
So whenever we started with the state 10 Invesco program, we really had 3 areas of interest, which was clean tech and digital services, and a variety of others, advanced materials, which the Markhams have a great background in, and things that the state actually felt like they were core to the state. Now, if you looked at those 3 areas of expertise and you turned them on sideways and said, okay, clean tech is really software, right? So you're replacing paper, you're doing some other things. It's not just fossil fuels, or it's not just you know, grass fuels and things like that. Clean tech actually is, in a lot of ways, a software product. So we started looking across that in a more generic way and saying, okay, you know, what does clean tech actually mean? Does reducing paper and reducing the need to have paper within your corporation and the amount of trees that saves, is that a clean tech product? Well, yes, it is. And so we've kind of turned the firm sideways, or I shouldn't say sideways, but on its side a little bit, and said, okay, we're really a software as a service focused firm. We do healthcare enablement software that helps enable healthcare, and then advanced materials, which is, of course, what we originally said. So we haven't deviated from what the state's original plan was or what we told the state we would invest in. We just classified it a little bit differently today.
Is there any area that's doing noticeably better than the others?
Yeah, I think, you know, we're moving into a software-dominated world.
That is, yeah.
And you're seeing that in the race to the top, and for Apple's, Samsung's, it doesn't really matter. I mean, now the average teenager uses 5 devices at one time. You know, they're watching television, they have their iPad, they have their iPhone, and then they're listening to music on top of it, right? And so we're in a very different world today.
That's incredible, yeah.
And so, you know, when the old world where we made things, advanced aeronautical equipment, if you're speaking specifically about this region, where, you know, you could patent that, and engineers, you could patent it. Well, software is moving so fast that patents really don't mean much anymore. And you're seeing that in cases now with Apple and Samsung and at the federal level, because they're arguing over stuff that's been created 5 years ago. And so, you know, who really wins in that scenario? Your product's already in the market. So. That's a dynamic we're watching closely.
In fact, I remember many years ago, it took you sometimes 2 or 3 years to even get a patent.
Sure.
Going through that whole process, and now, by the time you get a patent under those circumstances, it's probably not worth much anymore.
It really brings into question about whether or not you spend the money to go do that, because it really is a first-to-market type world we live in today.
Okay, now your fund, as you started out, was intended to be a revolving fund, right? The companies were going to pay back and hopefully provide you some of that money to keep recycling, huh?
Sure. I mean, the original Nest 10 portfolio, the money that was allocated to Nest 10 from the state, we had to invest that money over a pacing schedule. It was very aggressive. We had to get it out over 4 years, essentially, which we've done. We've met that goal set by the state. Now, if any of these companies monetize or pay back money from that investment before year 7, we have to put it back out into the market.
Before year 7?
Yes. Okay. Now, if they liquidate or put money back to us after year 7, then it goes back to the state, and then we divvy up the money according to the original guidelines of the program.
Goes back to the state?
Sure. I mean, the state wants to get their money back out of the program. I mean, it's an interesting public-private partnership where the state or the public side of the house is giving money to the private side of the house to manage it, according to private principles. And then at the end, the money will go back to the state and it'll be split along the guidelines that was set by the state in the beginning. So it's a very interesting and thoughtful program. And thankfully we had an administration that was at the forefront of that kind of thinking, because it was, at the time it was put in place, it was one of the only ones in the country that actually operated like the Tenevesco program has.
Yeah. Well, and to follow the economics of all of that is a complicated process that we don't really have time to get into. I remember you started out with credits from the state, but as far as they're concerned, that is in the nature of a loan, so they do need to be paid back.
Well, it's not a loan. So, I mean, their money is at risk, and we are the stewards of that money, putting it at risk, investing in equity securities and convertible debt securities of startup companies and tech companies, high growth potential companies. They wanted to see transformational type opportunities. So the state's well aware that they could lose some of their money. They're hoping that a handful of these companies have become very large companies that hire lots of people in Tennessee and pay a lot of taxes. And so that was kind of the original thought of the program, and I think that for the most part it's playing out as a stated plan. Yeah,
well, I would have thought, I guess, that that was the state's primary interest, was first of all creating jobs, and and that takes a bit of investment. Okay. Well, I was going to ask you, and maybe you tossed it out and I missed it, whether or not you're beginning to get some funds back.
We're moving into that stage. So in our original plan, year 4 through 7, you start to look to monetize some of your investments. And we're just starting year 4, and we're starting to get interest in some of our companies.
It is starting year 4.
Yeah, we are starting. We're right around year 4, and so we're starting to get significant interest in some of the companies. And quite frankly, are any of the companies really at a point where we would sell them? And I'd say probably not. I think we're at the very beginning of a 24 to 36 month period where we're going to look strongly at monetizing some of those assets.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Your 3 areas of interest, and of course you've got private money coming in too. So, are you still pretty much within that bracket, or are you able to expand out into other areas of interest?
Well, so with private money, we do stay within our focus, which is software, healthcare enablement, and advanced materials.
Okay.
But we're able to invest outside the state of Tennessee with those monies. So we have an investment in Silicon Valley. We have a recent one in Charlotte, North Carolina. We're looking at...
you have one in Silicon Valley?
We do have one in Silicon Valley. Actually, we did. It's a very interesting one. We did it with Paul Allen from Vulcan Capital, and a host of other guys, Pivot North Ventures and Baseline Ventures, Sand Hill Road. So we're very active out there. We you have to be. It's where 99% of the market is. So we try to keep our ears to the ground out there and pick and choose where we can place some bets.
Yeah. Okay. Well, folks, we need to take a short commercial break, and we'll find out some more.
the time, maybe you were just building a bridge, a business, or a community. Maybe you were simply working for a home or a better tomorrow. At the time, you served out of duty and love of country. But in that time, we see a legacy created, an American dream lived. The rehab team at Life Care Center of Tullahoma is ready to help you live well.
The Russell Barnett Automotive family would like to wish you and yours a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. For the past 34 years, we've proudly served you in the new and pre-owned automotive industry. We look forward to serving you many years to come. We have over 1,000 vehicles to choose from at russellbarnett.com. That's Russell Barnett Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Chevrolet, GMC, and Ford of Winchester, and Russell Barnett Ford and Kia of Tullahoma. That's russellbarnett.com. And remember, why buy anywhere else?
I'm meteorologist Leland Statham from the News Channel 5 Weather Center. Look to Jim Fuller and crew for local news night here on Channel 6.
We're talking today, folks, with Cameron Newton, who is a young entrepreneur and creator of other entrepreneurs, hopefully, sustainer at least. So let's move on to the point where you mentioned a little earlier on. So I gather you are still active in terms of what we'll call mentoring the companies that you've started. Is that a high level of activity? Or?
That we are very active. I probably sit on close to 10 boards now of various companies, and just not to correct you, but most of these companies we didn't start. We just helped along. It was other entrepreneurs, their ideas, and we provided guidance, capital, and stewardship to these folks. And so, yeah, we are very active for the most part. Obviously, companies that we have based outside of Tennessee, our activity with those companies is lower just from a purely geographic perspective. Yeah. But, we use technology, we invest in technology, so we use it. We use Skype. I attend all the board meetings in person for the most part, even if they're out of state. So yeah, we're very, very, very much active in still mentorship, stewardship, and certainly board positions.
You're on the boards of only 10, huh?
Only 10 at this moment. I mean, to check next week, there might be more.
Okay. Well, originally, and maybe you've got as much as you can handle right now, but I know in the early days you did what we called a couple of accelerators. Yes. And that was to provide a training program for folks that might have an idea that they'd like to pursue. Have you sort of moved beyond that, or are you still?
No, we're still very active in that. Of course, that is funded mainly from the state, and the way that funding works from the state of Tennessee has changed as the programs evolve. So we have changed along with it. So we do a lot more micro facility type one-day workshops, one-week workshops. I may go over to Shelbyville and speak for a day, or it may be some other part of Middle Tennessee. But we're still very active in that. We still have a vested interest and an economical interest in the Auto Accelerator, which last year we put on at Spring Hill. Was a very big event. That has kind of grown, and we're gaining more and more attention with that. And so we're bringing new parties in and expanding the presence of that and moving it not only from Spring Hill, Tullahoma, but maybe into other parts of Tennessee as the time progresses. So we're still very active in that. The state's still very active in their accelerator programs. There's a music accelerator coming out in Nashville here. They just recently announced the first 8 entries into that. The first of its kind in the world. I think it's pretty cool, and it's something that I think Tennessee can brag on, and so we're going to be paying close attention to that. But yeah, that's something, not only an initiative for us, but an initiative for the state of Tennessee. But if you think about it from our perspective as investors, a company, a young idea can go through an accelerator program, get mentorship, get their legal situation resolved, get set up, be ready to take outside investors on the other side of that. And I think that's what's really important for us. So we watch all of that stuff with great enthusiasm, and hopefully we sit on the other side of it and a good idea pops out, and we know that they're prepared and understand what it means to take on a new investor, to have a board, and to grow their business. Yeah.
Well, and I've seen something recently was kind of interesting, that the state of Tennessee is trying to build itself to the point of being the Detroit takeover. In other words, the automobile industry in the future is going to be focused in Tennessee rather than someplace else. And
well, there is certainly a big push from the state of Tennessee on that initiative. You've seen Volkswagen move to the state of Tennessee, Nissan. You've seen around the I-24 corridor from Nashville to Chattanooga, you're seeing the vendors begin to pop up everywhere. We've got
GM
and GM
in Smyrna. Well, and the thing you just touched on something I think most of us sort of overlook or don't really appreciate, and that is the fact that these companies here generate a whole lot of suppliers in the area. And,
they absolutely
do.
I mean, if you told me, if you said 10 years from now, if everyone in Tullahoma could look on a map and draw what I-24 would look like in 10 years, I think that everyone would have a lot of different opinions about that. But my own personal opinion is you're going to continue to see the corridor from Nashville to Chattanooga continue to be littered with suppliers and automotive sites. So I think there's going to be a big push for that. I think that what's going on in Nashville with the technology community, the tech community, is very important because most of the all the new technology in the automobiles is all software. I mean, no, it's not all software. There's a lot of engine technology and other things, but there's a big push, a big focus on making the connected car. So now you have 300 million new internet users on the road with their phone connected to their car, connected to the ability to drive the car. So you're going to see healthcare monitors being put in cars. You're going to see a big push for that. You're going to see, I mean, you know, this is the world we live in, right? I mean, it's software driven and it's going to be a very interesting next period of time.
Well, on the lighter side, speaking of the healthcare portion of it, I've just noticed this morning that somebody's, I guess at the annual conference they have, electronic show they have in Las Vegas, somebody's got a belt buckle now that will monitor what your expansion or contraction in your waistline needs to be and will automatically adjust your belt.
Well, sure. I mean, you know, if you think about it, that makes perfect sense. If the more that your primary care physician knows what your day-to-day healthcare statistics are, and whether that's your heart rate, heartbeat, you know, blood sugar, weight. You know, a lot of this stuff, if you drive your car every day, going back to the connected car premise, but if you drive your car every day, a lot of that stuff can be read in your car, whether it's in you sitting in your seat, a heart monitor through the back of your seat. I mean, there's a lot of things that can go on, and so I think that is where everything is moving, and you know, that's how you combat higher healthcare costs too, because you know, your readmittance to hospitals, your readmittance to the healthcare facility, et cetera, all goes down if you have a constant kind of a mechanism where your primary care physician can monitor. Yeah.
Well, and they're all setting up electronic sites themselves so that probably all this stuff that's being monitored will be automatically fed to your doctor's site for you that he's put on your care. Well, what's next? Where are you headed to?
Well, you asked me earlier if I was going to have any more kids, and I think the answer to that is no at this moment. But you know, I'm here. I'm not going anywhere.
Well, now, I know you're a mathematician, among other things, in statistics. You know, you're supposed to have 2.1 or 2 young'uns in order to be able to sustain, replicate yourself. So, but you're not available. Okay.
Well, maybe you can convince my wife into it. I doubt it, but maybe.
Okay.
But no, my plan is to grow the business here. I mean, we have 2 individuals now in Nashville. I work out of Nashville a lot, but the primary office is still here in Tullahoma. Our goal is to raise this $20 million fund. We're about halfway there, so through the end of last year, we're halfway there, and then we give ourselves another 12 months to kind of put a lid on it this next year. And then after that, we're going to go institutional. So we're going to try to raise a $200 million fund. Because at that point we'll have an operating record of 4 to 5 years and returns data and things of that sort.
Well, that's an interesting point, and without revealing anybody or anything in particular, what's the sources of your money? What are the primary sources?
Yeah, so high net worth individuals.
Individuals?
Yeah, individuals,
okay.
High net worth individuals, family offices, which is usually a congregation of high net worth individuals that have come together to allow people to invest their money. And then pension funds, insurance companies, your institutional investor base. A municipal pension fund would be a potential investor.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I understand they're getting a little more adventuresome. That's ordinarily a pension fund, usually a very conservative operation, but they're fairly springing out a little bit. Well, let me ask you a related question, and we're going to run out of time in a minute. One of the areas of primary interest in the last few years has been the quality of the workforce. What kind of experience are you running into there?
Yeah, I think that's it's an interesting problem because, one, there's a shortage of software developers, period, in the globe, because that industry is growing so fast. But then you're having now a shortage of workers where the manufacturing left the United States and now it's starting to come back and we don't have enough skilled workers. So it's definitely a problem. One, I think the government has tried to address through giving free junior college specialty training to folks, yet to be determined how successful.
They've tried to address it, but it isn't altogether clear that the young people coming up really appreciate this and are taking advantage of it. So that's not good news. Well, speaking of good news, folks, we don't have any more. We've run out of time, and we'll have to take a short break and wrap up.
Imagine a world with more birthdays. We strive for it every day. We fight to get people the best access to care and the chance for more parties to plan. We're the American Cancer Society. Help create a world with more birthdays at morebirthdays.com.
Get your news first, fast, and free with your news leader on 6 every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday nights at 6, 8, and 10 p.m. Local weather, sports, community calendar events, and a comprehensive look at the latest news stories and news makers as only a video news broadcast can do. Get it first, fast, and free with News Leader on Channel 6, your local information network.
We've been talking today, folks, with Cameron Newton, who is, as you have heard, is very active in the entrepreneurial business development world these days, and it's all running toward high tech. And I wanted to ask Cameron, since it is headed in the direction of high tech, and the quality of the workforce is a considerable concern. What's your counsel to the folks out there, the youngsters out there? What should they be doing?
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head in terms of software. I mean, there's always going to be a shortage of software engineers because it's just growing too fast. So that is a very lucrative profession for any young person to go into. Learning how to code, very important. However, if software is not your thing, you're seeing a renaissance of manufacturing back into this country. Now, the problem is you're having a shortage of workforce because it all left 20 years ago, and now you're starting to see it come back because of rising wages in China and other things. So vocational programs, someone that's interested in learning how to get into the auto industry, a ton of upward mobility right now in the plants. So I would highly encourage that.
But even the manufacturing area is high tech these days.
That's right. I mean, it's not the same as putting a screwdriver to a nut. You're going to learn how to run a software-driven machine that's connected to the internet.
Right. Okay. Well, with that, folks, we have run out of time. And Cameron, I want to thank you for sharing your program and your ideas with us today. And thank you, folks, for inviting us into your parlor. And we will see you next time.